Good morning, students. Today, you're going to learn about the conflict and absolutism in Europe, Europe in crisis. Hello, this is Mr. C, your social studies teacher, and today we're going to explore the conflicts that occurred in this time in Europe. Spain's militant Catholicism. The greatest supporter of militant Catholicism in the second half of the 1500s was King Philip II. He was the son of Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, King of Spain, and Archduke of Austria. Charles V's brother, Ferdinand I, succeeded him as Holy Roman Emperor. Philip II inherited the kingdoms of Milan, Naples, Sicily, the Netherlands, and Spain, and its empire in the Americas from Charles V. Philip, who reigned from 1556 to 1598, ushered in an age of Spanish greatness. To strengthen his control, Philip insisted on a strict conformity to Catholicism and a strong monarchical authority. He also had the powerful Spanish navy at his command. Around 1500, Catholic kingdoms in Spain had reconquered Muslim areas there and expelled Spanish Jews. Muslims were forced to convert or go into exile. Spain saw itself as a nation chosen by God to save Catholic Christianity from Protestant heretics. Philip II, the most Catholic king, championed the Catholic causes. Resistance from the Netherlands. One of the richest parts of Philip's empire, the Spanish Netherlands, consisted of 17 provinces, modern-day Netherlands and Belgium. Philip's attempt to strengthen his control in this region caused resentment and opposition from the nobles of the Netherlands. Philip also tried to crush Calvinism in the Netherlands. When violence erupted in 1566, Philip sent 10,000 troops to crush the rebellion. Philip faced growing resistance from the Dutch in the northern provinces led by William the Silent, the Prince of Orange. The struggle dragged on until 1609, when a 12-year truce finally ended the war. The northern provinces began to call themselves the United Provinces of the Netherlands and became the core of the modern Dutch state. In fact, the 17th century has often been called the Golden Age of the Dutch Republic by scholars because the United Provinces held center stage as one of Europe's great powers. Protestantism in England. Elizabeth repealed the laws favoring Catholics. A new act of supremacy named Elizabeth as the one supreme governor of both church and state. The Church of England under Queen Elizabeth followed a moderate Protestantism that kept most people satisfied. Elizabeth was also moderate in her foreign policy. She tried to keep Spain and France from becoming too powerful. The Queen feared that war would be disastrous for England and for her own rule. However, she could not escape a conflict with Spain. Defeat of the Spanish Armada. In 1588, Philip II made preparations to send an armada, a fleet of warships, to invade England. A successful invasion of England would mean the overthrow of Protestantism. The fleet that set sail had neither the ships nor the manpower that Philip had planned to send. The hope for victory never came. The armada was battered by the faster English ships and sailed back to Spain by a northern route around Scotland and Ireland, where it was pounded by storms. By the end of Philip's reign in 1598, Spain was not the great power that it appeared to be. Spain was the most populous empire in the world, but it was bankrupt. Philip II had spent too much on war. His successor spent too much on his court. The armed forces were out of date, and the government was inefficient. Spain continued to play the role of a great power, but the real power in Europe had shifted to England and France. The French Wars on Religion, the Huguenots. Huguenots were French Protestants influenced by John Calvin. They made up only about 7% of the total French population, but 40 to 50% of the nobility became Huguenots. This made the Huguenots a powerful political threat to the crown. An extreme Catholic party, known as the Ultra-Catholics, strongly opposed the Huguenots. Having the loyalty of part of northern and northwestern France, they could play for and recruit large armies. Religion was the most important issue, but other factors played a role in the ensuing French civil wars. Towns and provinces were willing to assist the nobles in weakening the growing power of the French monarchy. Henry IV and the Edict of Nantes. When Henry IV was crowned king in 1594, the fighting in France finally came to an end. To solve the religious problem, Henry IV issued the Edict of Nantes in 1598. The edict recognized Catholicism as the official religion of France. It also gave the Huguenots the right to worship and to enjoy all political privileges, such as holding public offices. This edict appeased both Catholics and Huguenots. Good morning, students. Today, we're going to continue the chapter Conflict and Absolutism in Europe, Europe in Crisis Part 2. Hello, students. This is Mr. C, your social studies teacher, and today we're continuing the lesson Europe in Crisis, Part 2. In addition to political upheaval and religious warfare, severe economic and social crises plagued Europe in the 17th and 17th centuries. One major economic problem was inflation, or rising prices. A growing population in the 16th century increased the demand for land and food and drove up prices for both. Economic and social crisis. By the 1600s, an economic slowdown had begun in parts of Europe. Spain's economy, grown dependent on imported silver, was failing by the 1640s. Its mines were producing less silver. Its fleets were subject to pirate attacks. Also, the loss of Muslim and Jewish artisans and merchants hurt the economy. Italy, the financial center of Europe in the Renaissance, was also declining economically. Population figures in the 1500s and 1600s reveal Europe's worsening conditions. The 1500s were a period of growing population, possibly due to a warmer climate and increased food supplies. Europe's population probably increased from 60 million in 1500 to 85 million by 1600. By 1620, the population had leveled off. It had begun to decline by 1650, especially in Central and Southern Europe. Warfare, plague, and famine all contributed to the population decline and to the creation of social tensions. One source of tension involved the witchcraft trials. Witchcraft trials. A belief in witchcraft or magic have been part of traditional village culture for centuries. The religious zeal that led to the Inquisition and the hunt for heretics was extended to concern about witchcraft. During the 16th and 17th centuries, an intense hysteria affected the lives of many Europeans. Perhaps more than 100,000 people were charged with witchcraft. As more and more people were brought to trial, the fear of witches grew, as did the fear of being accused of witchcraft. Common people, usually the poor and those without property, were the ones most often accused of witchcraft. More than 75% of those accused were women. Most of them were single or widowed and over 50 years old. Under intense torture, accused witches usually confessed to a number of practices. For instance, many said that they had sworn allegiance to the devil and attended sabbats, nightly gatherings at which they feasted and danced. Others admitted to casting evil spells. The 30 Years' War. Religious disputes continued in Germany after the Peace of Augsburg in 1555. One reason for the dispute was that the peace settlement had not recognized Calvinism. By the 1600s, Calvinism had spread through Europe. Religion played an important role in the outbreak of the 30 Years' War, called the last of the religious wars. However, political and territorial motives were also evident. Beginning in 1618, in the Holy Roman Empire, the war first involved a struggle between Catholic forces, led by the Habsburg Holy Roman Emperors, and the Protestant, primarily Calvinist, nobles in Bohemia. As Denmark, Sweden, France, and Spain entered the war, the conflict began more political. For instance, France, directed by the Catholic Cardinal Richelieu, fought against the Holy Roman Empire, and Spain in an attempt to gain European leadership. All major European powers, except England, were involved in the plundering and destruction of Germany during the 30 Years' War. The Peace of Westphalia officially ended the war in 1648 and gave Sweden, France, and their allies new territories. The treaty firmly established the concept of national sovereignty and is regarded by many scholars to herald the rise of the modern state system in Europe. Sweden's acquisitions in the Baltic Sea region increased its power in the northern Europe. The peace settlement also divided the more than 300 states of the Holy Roman Empire into independent states, each with the freedom to determine their own religion and conduct foreign policy. The Holy Roman Empire ceased to be a political entity. Another 200 years would pass before German unification.